Hey, it's Tyler, host of the Tyler Knows Everything podcast, where the nose is crossed out because I always want to learn more. I'm broadcasting today from Wardenclyffe Studios. As usual, I'll go ahead and get all of the advertisements out of the way right now so there's no interruption in the content of the show. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by my patrons on Patreon. This month's patrons are Ty Kudrain, Roxanne and Eric Helberg, Zach Hawthorne, Paul Prosperi, the Honorable Judge Mitch Templeton, Wade Adair, and Mark McKee. Mitch Templeton sponsors this podcast as a political ad paid for by the Mitch Templeton for Judge campaign. You too can sponsor my creative content effort for as little as $5. Just go to patreon.com/Tyler Knows Everything. That's www.patreon.com/Tyler Knows Everything. My guest today is both super interesting and highly intelligent. For nearly 200 years, this family has been a part of the ranching community in Jefferson County, Texas. While the face of Texas agriculture has evolved and changed much over the years, Wild Earth Texas believes in a mindful blending of the old values and traditions with modern innovations. Wild Earth Texas wanted to produce beef that they felt good about serving on their family's table. Please welcome the owner of Wild Earth Texas, Rachel Wilson.
Tyler
knows
everything.
Speaking of celebratory, today was kind of your first shipping day, right?
Today was my very first official shipping day for Wild Earth, Texas.
And how do
I'm giddy on the inside right now.
So how do you ship me? Because obviously you got to keep it cold. So is the challenge the logistics of keeping it cold, or what all did you have to go through that was kind of overwhelming?
So it's been about a year in the making. It is the absolute logistics of how to get things at optimum quality. So you want it still frozen. You want presentation to be right. You want your quality to be right. And so how do you get something from point A to point B in that condition and in an economical manner that makes sense?
Yeah.
And with the whole pandemic COVID thing, it's thrown a whole wrench in it because everybody's shipping so much that it's hard to guarantee your shipments, UPS and the couriers and stuff like that.
Did you have to use dry ice?
I did.
Yeah.
I only burned myself once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's always cool when I get something received to me with dry ice, because then I can play with the dry ice.
Right.
Afterwards.
I did put a big warning label on there. It was like, don't touch it.
No,
don't swallow it.
Yeah.
Don't put it in a sink. So I actually started about a year ago doing a course. It was based on a Google search that was how to ship, frozen meat and do it effectively. And I came across a farm called Five Mary's Farm out of California, and they had a small business course. It's called Small Business from Scratch, with a course called How to Ship Frozen Meat All Over the Country and How to Brand It. And so that's been a really incredible resource and network for me.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to your origin story and hear about how you got started in farming.
Okay. So I am a sixth-generation Texan rancher in Jefferson County.
And that goes all the way back to the beginning almost, because 6 generations, that's over 100 years.
Well, 7 generations.
Maybe 140 years.
Yeah, so we predate the charter of Beaumont.
Yeah.
No, the charter is 180 years old, and
I
think we're 193.
Okay, yeah, so you're older than the city of Beaumont, and just slightly younger than Texas, I guess, right? Texas would be 1836.
Well, yeah, he fought my original Beaumont ancestor fought in the Battle of San Jacinto.
Oh, wow.
But he wasn't really old enough to fight. He was minding the guns.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, man. That's incredible.
And then was able to walk back to Beaumont from there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And so all the farms that have been in your family's name have been in Texas?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. And so we've been running cattle in Jefferson County for 196 years, I think it is. they never really ventured into direct market beef. And so when I came home, I actually started an organic farm, and I was growing vegetables,
Right.
which was really, really difficult to do and didn't really play in with the rest of the business and with the rest of the ranch.
What all did you have to do to make them considered organic?
What do you mean?
Like, did you have to take certain precautions to make sure that you could call them organic?
As
Like,
far as beef or?
oh no, for your vegetables.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't want to jump through all the flaming hoops of the
Yeah.
logistics of
Right.
growing something organic and in our community, which really isn't.
Because it's like you can't use any pesticides.
Right.
You can't use any.
But as soon as a mosquito plane flies over, you're no longer organic.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You think about that, and like we have so much widespread pesticide use and herbicide use that it really just didn't make sense. So I was going for a more all natural approach. Then so you can just say, this is what we do, this is what I've done, this is what I have control over, and that's the best I can do. And I think and the same goes with the beef. Instead of trying to go through the organic system for USDA, it makes so much more sense to be honest with your customer and provide 100% transparency. Be like, this is what it is, and we're happy with that and we're proud of that. And I think that offers something that a USDA organic sticker can never do.
Yeah. And your uniqueness would be grass-fed and grass-finished beef? Yeah.
So we are grass-fed, grass-finished, no hormones, no antibiotics ever. Then we dry age the beef at a USDA facility. And so like all these different kind of layers come together to create our product, which is kind of neat.
I was curious how the dry aging works.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on your stomach and how you think about beef.
Yeah.
Because what it is, it's a very controlled way of tenderizing beef and about like bringing about a flavor change in your beef.
Yeah. I know for sure that every time I've eaten meat that says it's been aged, it tastes better. So I'm okay with hearing what has to be done.
You actually lose about 4% of the volume, like anywhere starting at like 14 days, which is about what we go for.
Yeah.
You're losing about 4 to 6% of your volume of beef. So we're actually getting less product, but that's also concentrating your beef flavor. It's also going to like provide some tenderness into the meat and things like that.
So is it hanging?
Yeah, so the whole thing hangs at the processor. That's all of our ground meat, roast, everything is 14 days.
And when it's aging, is it refrigerated?
Yeah, yes. It's not like at room temperature or anything. And so it hangs at a very specific temperature. I think it's like maybe just above refrigeration. So you still have that bacterial growth.
Oh, okay.
And then it creates kind of like a hardened layer.
Crust or something, yeah.
Yeah, like a crust. No, it's called a bark around the whole thing. And so then they actually shave all of that off. So you're losing another 2% of your animal. But the flavor quality, like in the flavor profile that you get, is just totally worth it.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess your cheaper ground beef that you see in the grocery store didn't go through that process.
Not even just ground beef. Most roasts and everything like that, it comes off the animal, is instantly cryopacked, and then like goes to a grocery store. And so they're not even doing a lot of wet aging. It's a pretty immediate process.
And is it true that most cows are grass-fed? It's just that most of them aren't grass-finished, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so that last process, the finishing, is where they're fattening them up.
That's actually like probably one of the biggest things I get blowback on is because they're like, well, don't all cows eat grass? And I was like, well, yes, technically that's true.
Yeah.
But the way that our cattle industry works, it's set up for a very specific purpose.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to, I think that all of those sectors have their own purpose in our food system, but it's kind of nice to operate outside of those bounds sometimes and be able to offer something different. So there's something different for everyone.
Yeah.
The main like beef industry as a whole, like with your concentrated feeding operations and like the way that it works, the average herd size in the United States is less than 50 head per person.
Okay.
I mean, when you think of that's a massive, I mean, when you're talking about millions of animals, you know, like that's a massive diversity in flavor and genetics and all these different things. And so they can actually take all of those animals from all these different ranchers, put them through a single system, and come out with a pretty consistent product.
Yeah.
Which serves its purpose to that end. and then we can do something that's different from that and say, well, we don't do that, but
Yeah.
we like our product too.
You
So
know,
it's
it'll be
neat.
cool for the people that you shipped it to is it's going to taste different than their region.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've been doing grass-fed research.
A little bit, you know,
Yeah.
in February, it wasn't this February, it was last February, I did the entire month of the carnivore diet. And so I typically did grass-fed cuts,
Yeah.
and because I did want to make some variety, you know, so I would mix it up with some bison. I was doing meat and eggs only, and I did.
My favorite customers are carnivore diet
Yeah,
customers.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because they're only eating that. And I did my blood labs before and after because I was doing it for an experiment.
Yeah.
My bachelor's degree is in nutrition, but I don't use it for my career. So I like to try to do experiments
Yeah.
and just report back to people and tell. And this was kind of a new thing. And I did the same thing with the ketogenic diet. And the ketogenic diet actually coincided with me getting a new life insurance policy, and I just so happened to have to do a blood test. I was like, oh man, I haven't tested this out yet. I don't know what it's going to be. And I actually qualified for the lowest premium because the labs were good.
So what you're saying is I should go get my labs now since I've been quarantine ketoing.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. And for carnivore diet, I got exceptionally leaner. You know, I wasn't going for weight loss,
Right.
but as a result, kind of as a byproduct of not having a lot of starches and sugar, I got significantly leaner, and testosterone levels were good. You know, because cholesterol is a precursor to testosterone, and
Right.
so men actually need cholesterol in order to produce testosterone. And I was trying to compare my lab results to a vegan male of similar age and activity level, and I reached out to some, but they wouldn't agree to it. They didn't want to do it, and I think they knew what I was getting at. I was
Yeah.
going to be slam dunking on them about how I was healthier from eating, you know, carnivore, but
Well,
which
it's not
was kind
necessarily
of
healthier. It's
yeah.
one of those things. It's like, let's be objective and let's take a look at what our bodies are doing.
Yeah, and it's all about personal preference. You know, they may be vegan for health reasons, or they may be vegan for
Ethical reasons, yeah.
ethical reasons. So you know, to each their own, and you can definitely do whatever is best for your lifestyle. I just wanted to have some data, and
Right.
I was trying to experiment, but I kind of got left alone for that. Anyway.
It's okay. I'm a total data nerd, actually. Like, as
Mhm.
far as just tracking everything, and it's been really interesting. But going back to the flavor, like what you're talking about,
Yeah.
the
Why is it different for regions?
yeah. So the same with you can take it's the same concept but backwards
Mhm.
for the concentrated feeding operations. So you can take cattle from all over one place, feed them the same thing, and they'll taste the same.
Yeah.
But whenever you reverse engineer that, then you can go backwards and say and create an actual bioregional flavor profile. So it's just like with bees and honey.
Yeah.
So you can have like lavender honey and citrus honey from all these different places based on what they're eating.
Right.
What the beef eats is what the cows eat is what the beef tastes like.
Yeah, you know, I had a beekeeper on here a few weeks ago.
Really?
And
Which one?
It was Chris Robichaux.
Oh, yeah.
He's a Lumberton police officer, and he does this as a side hobby with a man named Del Boyette. And Del Boyette's almost 80 years old, or maybe 80, and he's been doing bees his whole life. You know, he goes in without a suit, without a mask, anything. And he actually was advertising today the honey that he sells. He said, this is Lumberton honey. These bees came from Lumberton. And
Right.
so Lumberton people wanted to buy it, you know, and sometimes he's collecting from Winnie or Beaumont or Finette. And
And you
it's
just
good.
keep it as regional as you can. Like, 'cause I'm all about like eating the plants around you and eating the things that are grown here is what's going to give you and feed your body best.
Yeah.
I don't have the science for that.
Right.
Maybe it's just like one of those feel good things, but I'm a thorough believer. Like if you're eating things from the soil around you, you know, and same as eating beef that's eating the grass around you, then it's just
Yeah.
a better, more closed system.
Yeah, Tillman's restaurant, Saltgrass, you know, of course, refers to the type of grass that the cows are eating. A lot of people don't realize that.
I didn't realize that.
They just think, oh, I'm going to Saltgrass Steakhouse, whatever. It's a cool name. It's Western. But I think it's to throw a nod to the steaks that they have, I guess.
Well, the saltgrass would be, I guess, marsh cattle.
Ye-
So, like, we have...
kind of like what you have.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah.
we live in the marsh, so
Yeah.
that's fair.
And speaking of Tillman Fertitta, you know, he has a show, $1 Billion Buyer, and a grass-fed farm was trying to pitch him grass-fed, you know, steaks. So they did a taste test and put it on the menu, and they would give people, you know, the regular marbled version versus grass-fed. And what he found was people were giving reviews that the marbled version, of course, was a little bit more, flavorful and juicy, but they understood why they wanted the grass-fed version for health reasons.
Right.
And that's naturally that's going to happen. If you look at the two different cuts of meat, the grass-fed's a little darker and less marbled because it's, in my opinion, more of an athlete. You're eating
you're eating a more active animal,
yeah.
and that's been one of the biggest challenges for us is when we first started processing 5 years ago, I didn't like our beef. Like the first one was really good. It created prime. It was a grass-fed prime animal. I was like, I'm going to build a business on this. This is going to be amazing. And I go like all in, get all my stuff. And the second one was like, oh, I don't like this as much.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, okay, well, what do we need to do with our program? And what do we need to do with our pastures? And what do we need to, how old does the animal need to be? And so we had to create, you're not reinventing a wheel, but you're creating a wheel that works for your pastures, your system, and your genetics for your animals.
Yeah, that's a lot of science.
It's a lot of data, and and you won't know because the animals are about 30 months old.
Okay.
So anything that you're doing, you have to wait 2 years to find out if it worked.
Right. Yeah.
Because how else are you going to know? And so we have finally perfected it. It took about 2.5 years where it's consistent every month, and it's well marbled. We're top choice working on prime for a grass-fed, grass-finished animal, and it takes work to do that. And
does USDA tell you what it is?
No, I mean, we just have our charts.
Right, okay, gotcha.
But you can eyeball it. They don't, because we go through such a small plant, there isn't a grader on site. But you can look at it and be like, yeah, absolutely, that's a top choice steak all day.
Yeah, and the ones that aren't grass finished, what are they eating during that time? Usually. You
mean for the finishing? Usually for the last 180.
Like other company or other beef that don't have grass finished beef. Like what is it that they're eating during?
As in like grocery store beef?
Yeah,
or other
like
beef?
Grocery store beef.
Okay,
yeah.
They go through like a feeding program that includes different like silages and corn and grains and like it's a very specific mixture.
Okay.
Of stuff, and depending on the feedlot, you can get a lot of therapeutic doses of antibiotics. Usually, they have some artificial hormones when they first get there.
And is that to make them bigger?
It's to make them bigger, but it's also to keep them healthy because there's so many of them living in a small space.
Okay, gotcha. So similar to Texas, who's a little more spread out, versus New York, where they're living on top of each other.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, I mean, they do all those things for a certain reason to achieve a certain result. But, like, when you're on antibiotics long term, and then they go through their safety withdrawal period, so it's not there, during processing. But it's just something that we wanted to do something different.
And a lot of customers like your model because the animals have a better life while they are there because it's not factory farming. And
well, they're certainly more active, and they're very athletic.
Yeah, because there's people that they want to eat meat. They haven't gone the vegan route, but they would prefer an animal grow up on your farm versus a cramped environment, and so they, it's almost like they're thanking you for providing that service.
And the animals live a different life, and so they're born and raised on the same ranch. When you think about even the carbon footprint of an animal being born and raised and rotating around the same ranch, and then the only time that it gets on a truck is to go to the processor and then come back.
Right.
We are adding, I did have some feelings about like, okay, well now I'm putting them on trucks and I'm putting them on planes to get my meat other places. And I was like, I don't know, that's cool still.
And then
it's still so much less than having to transport grain and transport all these different things to make it happen.
What are the land management aspects that you have to go through to keep up with all of this?
A lot.
Yeah.
So we do different pasture management practices. So that's rotation. We do planting winter ryegrasses and things like that. I don't know, burning, different things.
And then do you have to rotate them around, or do you have enough land that
we have enough in our program where we don't have to rotate them as much, but we do rotate seasonally and like rest pastures and things like that. Okay. And so we don't do a lot of times utilize, it's Southeast Texas, we can all spread out a little bit more. In more urban environments like in California and things like that, they have to utilize, their farms are just naturally smaller.
Yeah.
And so they have to utilize like mob grazing where they are moving their cattle 2 and 3 times a day. And I was like, that's seems like a lot. Like, it's very hot outside.
I learned from the beekeeper too that California has a shortage of bees, and so a lot of the beekeepers here are having to ship the bees over there for a season.
Well, I know that they ship over, I think it's like 85+% of all of the commercial hives in the U.S. actually go to California for the almond pollination.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they all mix around, and then they like go spread back out.
So are there any type of emerging technologies that you've implemented on your farm? Because farming, of course, is old school, and you're 7 generations in. So there's kind of a wave of doing it the old way and then also adding in some technology. What are some of the things that you do?
Absolutely. So we have our herd health, like one of our business partners and our herd health management, he's our cowboy. Like, he can look at a cow and he knows, and he can look at a herd of cows and say, that one is that one's baby, and that one is that one's baby. And he like generationally, he just knows these things, right? And so I would call that old cowboying.
Right.
So when
is he like an employee that lives there?
He doesn't live on ranch anymore, but his family lives nearby, and he's so it's Joel Piku, and he is our herd health management and our business partner in the herd.
Yeah. And most of that's like LaBelle, Fannette, same.
Fannette
area. Okay.
And so, like, I would call that, like, the old cowboy, you know? And then, so I'm sitting there when we're picking out bulls, and he looks over and he goes, oh, yeah, that's a really good bull. And I've got my spreadsheet of all his genetics and everything like that. I'm like, yeah, I agree. That's a really good bull. And so, like, we can match up, you know, based on all of the data that we're seeing, you know, and what they look like. Because it's one thing if they look good on paper and it's, you know, not ideal in the field, but when you can get something that matches up. So we've actually been working on our genetic program for over 20 years. And that includes taking like hair samples and sending them off. And we can actually see how well they can convert grass into fat. And we can see how they can convert all these different things, which is super helpful data. And then I lost my train of thought. Oh, so with the bulls, you can actually, there's a new ultrasound machine.
Okay.
And so you can actually ultrasound and say, okay, well, it says it has the genetic capability to marble out. Oh. Well, let's take the ultrasound and actually look at his ribeye and see if there's marbling in there.
Whoa.
Isn't that cool?
I had no idea. So while he's alive,
yeah. I mean, that's
that's
our bulls. So that's the ones that we breed to the mama cows to then make the grass-fed animals.
Oh, okay. So his babies are going to have some of his marbling genetics.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so you can actually go through. So then you're improving your heifer herd. So you're gradually just improving your marbling genetics across the entire herd.
Yeah.
Because bulls have the equation, you know.
Yeah. And then do you ever eat the bull at the end of his life?
No.
Nope. Nobody does?
He usually just goes on to retirement somewhere else.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So is it always female cows that we're eating?
No. So we use usually it's steers and heifers.
Okay.
So steer is a castrated male.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
And so that's what makes up 99% of the Wild Earth program is the steers, because they finish out a little bit bigger, and we like, you know, a ribeye that's about 1.5 pounds. So 1.2 to 1.3 pounds.
And are your cows? What are they? Do you call them Angus, or what is the?
We're actually
terminology?
I had Angus in there for a while. So all of my animals are half Angus, half Hereford, with a little bit of Brahma mixed in for heat tolerance.
Yeah.
And I was doing a side-by-side comparison, like hanging out, and the Herefords just did better. And it's because they're red instead of black.
Yeah,
so,
because the sun.
Because the sun. It gets so hot down here.
Yeah, if you wear a black T-shirt, then you're going to be hot. So have you noticed the summers being hotter recently compared to some of your ancestors that farmed, or have you heard them talk about that?
I mean, I think it all varies, right?
Yeah.
Because you remember, like, when I first...
it's always hot down here.
Yeah, so it's always hot in the summer. So last summer, it rained every day. Remember? Like, it rained probably every two... Yeah, and it was, like, miserable. So it wasn't that hot, but it just rained. Like, so we couldn't get equipment in the field, and we couldn't do things like that. I guess 6 years ago, we had the terrible drought. Like, and we're having to haul water to cattle, you know, every day, and, like, having to do all this stuff. I mean, I think... Southeast Texas is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, it's very random.
You got to be tough to live down here.
Did you have any flooding out there?
Which time?
There's been several, yeah. Both times, I guess.
We flooded in Imelda, and then we flooded in Harvey, of course, and then, you know, Ike and like all the other things.
Yeah.
So. But we were very, very fortunate that our hurricane plans worked in Harvey and Imelda. So
Oh, okay. What is your hurricane plan?
it depends on the hurricane.
Is it moving animals around or moving them out?
Moving animals around.
Yeah.
Just depending on what it is, because you never know until the last minute. Because we butt up to the Intercoastal Canal, and so if it's a storm surge event, everything needs to move north. If it's a wind event, we just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Just be prepared and be ready.
So back when the Native Americans roamed around, we heard a lot about bison and buffalo.
Yeah.
Right? And it seems like there was less and less of them. So I was kind of doing some research on my own of, why aren't there more buffalo like there are cows? Like every time you pass a cow pasture, like, where's all the buffalo? Like, why are we not making more buffalo? And I didn't know, because buffaloes look huge. They
are huge.
They look massive and muscular. But I didn't know that you can get more usable meat from a cow than you can from a buffalo. Like the yield is more for.
I could understand that because they're a pretty lean animal. They're just like big and have a big bone structure.
Yeah, and I think it may be because we use more of the cow. I mean, because there's people eating the tongue and they're getting their
It's
mileage.
called nose to tail philosophy.
Yeah. And I don't think they're doing that with buffalo. I think it's just kind of the standard cuts of meat. I don't think that there's a market for.
I think that you get a lot of
Buffalo
meat out of
Apoa.
them just because they are like a big-bodied animal, but they don't have. They're not like wide. Like they're not.
Yeah. And it's definitely more expensive per pound. From what I've seen.
And it's also more expensive to raise them. The infrastructure that it takes to, like, if you've ever driven by, like, a buffalo ranch, the infrastructure, like the fencing has to be so much stronger and taller, and the handling has to be different. I mean, they're as big as a horse.
Yeah. And they probably like to run and roam and...
they can get kind of...
Cows just kind of chill a little bit. So what
more domesticated.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some of the amounts and weights that you deal with when it comes to processing the cow? Like going from how much it weighs, pasture weight, or I know you have those farm terms or whatever that.
That's hoof weight.
Yeah, okay, hoof weight.
You got hoof weight when it's standing on the hoof.
So what's a typical hoof?
Wow, my drawl just came out really strong there. Hoof weight. So we usually are processing around 1,200 pounds of hoof weight.
Okay.
Anywhere from 1,200 to 1,300 pounds. Now that will dress out to a hot weight whenever it's like on the rail.
The rail is hanging?
Hanging.
Okay.
Like, so when it's still hot, hadn't shrunk from any dry aging or cooling or anything like that.
And that's after it's been gutted, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There's like a certain list of words that usually I don't like.
Oh, right.
Use those. I
that's one of them.
Gutted.
Yeah. I just know from like hunting, because you hang a deer and then you gut the deer. Yeah.
But we also we sell kidney, heart, liver. We have caveman blends that utilize a lot of the organ meats. We sell different parts of the fat. We have people like anything that we can take that's usable. We absolutely sell. That includes the tongues and the cheek and anything the government says that we can have.
Yeah, because barbacoa, is that the cheek?
It's like more of the head, but we don't use like the head with the
Yeah.
brain and stuff like that because it's an older animal, so they don't let us do that.
Is it for pyrons, I guess? Or I don't know. I know sometimes brain meat gets sketchy because it's like...
It's something about mad cow disease.
Right, yeah.
And so like we just... No, thank you. Like we'll stick with all the safe parts of it, but we do oxtail and things like that.
I need to try... I haven't really tried organ meat. I mean, I can't remember really because it's kind of like an older person thing.
It tends to be like a Luby's thing, which I guess we can't do anymore. And so we actually created a caveman blend, which takes our 80-20 ground beef and it blends in like liver and heart into it, so
really
you can't really taste it.
So is it darker?
It's a little bit leaner and it's a little bit darker, like a little firmer.
Okay.
But otherwise, you can't taste it, and so it's a good way to like introduce your organ meats, like. Into your hamburgers and into your meatloafs and stuff like that without actually having to make liver and onions.
Wow. And I guess the health benefits would be iron, and what are some of the other organ health benefits? I know
there's a slew of them. There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, from what I've heard. Yeah, for sure. I know that. And
vitamin A is super high in liver, and then you're still getting all of your good fats.
Yeah.
And
the essential fatty acids and the omegas.
I think we were talking about hang weights. We went on a bunny trail.
Yeah, we were going to pasture weight to hanging weight.
Yes.
And so we go from from, let's say,
So it's anywhere like our hang
1,300
weights.
pounds to down to.
It'd be about 800 to 750 pounds. So
Okay.
you're getting about 60% back. That's on the hot weight. And from that, then you have to take out the unusable bones, shrink, everything like that. So you're really only getting about 45% of your meat back.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I know sometimes I've heard friends that they'll go in together and like buy a cow, basically, or buy, and it comes all processed and they've got all the cuts and things kind of.
We do offer whole cow shares, and there was actually a big demand for it when
For freezer meat, stock in your freezer. Yeah.
when the beef shortage came in, and I'll put that in quotes. But
yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you. Why was there, or why is there? It's still going on. It seems like a beef shortage.
Is it? I have a whole bunch of beef. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So I do go to the grocery store and I get the tubes, or I get chuck steaks, and things like that, and there's less of it. There's less to choose from. What's going on? Is it the supply chain? Is it logistics? Shipping?
It's the meat packing plants.
Packing plants.
It's the packing plants.
Because I guess they're
so
low on
big.
staff, maybe because there's, if you have to quarantine for 14 days, you can't go to work.
I kind of think of it, so our packing plant is over in LaGrange. I use Walhalla Valley Smokehouse. They actually specialize in Wagyu. They're really an amazing processing house.
Yeah.
My butcher's name is Tommy, and there's 7 other people that work there.
Right.
And they're processing 1 day a week. And a lot of times it's just mine.
Very personal.
It's very personal. It's very small. Like it's a mom and pop, right? And but they're really good at what they do. And then you kind of look at the other end of the spectrum when you have 8,000 people that are working shoulder to shoulder processing beef. That's an entirely different work environment, and it is heavy work, and you're doing a lot of heavy breathing, and a lot of those people live together, and so it's an entirely different model.
When I was in college, I went on a field trip to a Pilgrim's Pride processing, chicken.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a job I couldn't do.
No.
It's full blown assembly line, 8 hours a day, and we were kind of immature.
Making the same cut.
Yeah, we were immature college kids, right? So there's this one lady on the conveyor belt, and her entire job is snipping wings. So it's like snip, snip, for what, 8 hours a day?
Yeah.
So
6 days a week or whatever.
So the plant manager is talking and he gives a spiel for 15-20 minutes, and then says, does anybody have any questions? And the very first question was the guy saying, what's your job turnover like? And of course he said, well, they rotate different jobs and they take breaks and stuff,
right.
and we're just thinking, oh my gosh,
right.
How could you snip wings 40 hours a week? Just snip, that's all you do.
Yep.
But somebody's got to do it. We go to Buffalo Wild Wings and we take it for granted that we're eating these wings, and somebody had to snip them all off.
It is one of the biggest disconnects from our food source, of not realizing the work that goes into it. And people go to a grocery store and they're like, well, I don't understand. There's always been beef here before.
Oh, right, yeah.
Or like, well, how does that happen? And they're looking at ranchers, and the ranchers like, we have meat. We have cows, but it never made sense to me that you could have all of these animals in the field, right? And like our work doesn't change. Like our prices don't change, our inputs don't change. We still have to like produce and take care of these animals, right? And then the people on Wall Street so cattle prices are like the lowest they've been in a long time.
Oh yeah,
but there's still a shortage of beef, like because
I forgot about that. So your animals are a traded commodity?
Yeah.
On the stock market.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
And so and then you have to look at it like corn and then
soy,
all these different inputs into the cattle business. So like whenever you get our sheet, it also says what the price of corn is and what the price of oil is and what the price of this is, because that all affects cattle prices as well.
Right. Okay.
And you kind of go, you do all the same things, then you come to the market with your hat in your hand and you say, what do you give me for my animal?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, supply and demand.
Yeah.
You mentioned your processor dabbles in Wagyu.
So they have a Wagyu ranch.
Yeah, what is that? We hear Wagyu when you want to flex on your friends and be like, I'm eating a Wagyu steak, but they don't even know what they're talking about. What is that?
So Wagyu is a breed, and so they raise Texas Wagyu, and it's just a Japanese breed of cattle that is known for their marbling.
Okay.
So they grade prime most of the time, and it's really just a beautiful tender, high-end meat.
Yeah. And then same thing for Kobe. Is that a species or?
Yeah, Kobe beef is more like Champagne region of France. Kobe beef comes from the Kobe region of Japan.
Ah, okay.
But
Got
like
it.
the Wagyu is more of the breed, so that's something that's come over to America.
Okay,
and then
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's definitely
Is
gonna
that
have.
how you flex on your friends? You're like, it's Wagyu.
Yes, exactly. My good
And now
friend.
you can be like, it's grass-fed and
Yeah.
local.
My good friend Justin Starr, who is kind of like a private chef on the side,
Mm-hmm.
he calls it the Bugatti of beef.
Yeah, that's about right. That's about right.
Yeah. So, what is the size of your herd that you typically keep? You know, I guess you stay consistent year over year, or is it getting bigger year over year?
So we've been in the grass-fed program. I've been doubling every year.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, which has been really exciting. In processing, I've doubled every year for the last 5 years, and we're set to double again this year, which is pretty exciting.
Goodness. And that's because you took over, right? Like
Well, and
or-
that's through our direct marketing, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm just talking about the grass-fed, because Wild Earth Texas is my business
Yeah.
that actually buys cattle from our ranch
Mhm.
and takes it all the way through processing, marketing, and sales.
Yeah.
And
And maybe walk me through your different channels, because you have the channel of selling to someone like me
Mhm.
that's going to put it in the freezer. And then you have your channel of selling to local restaurants around here.
we actually sell. So I sell to Monica's, and she's basically the only real local restaurant that we work with.
Which is kind of fun because you have a little bit of exclusivity. Well, that word. I'm not gonna-
Exclusivity.
Yeah, you may
I
have
think
nailed
so.
it.
Yeah. It's actually, I love working with her
Uh-huh.
because being a small beef producer, like when you go to a chef, they're like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, I'll buy from you. Give me, 30 racks of ribeyes."
Oh,
And you kind of go, "Well, I don't have that," but like also there's the entire other animal. So they're
Yeah.
only wanting the fillets or they're only wanting ribeyes. And Monica's fun because she'll call you up and be like, "Hey, what do you have?
yeah, and she's
What are you working with?"
and that's kind of her niche too.
Yeah.
Is she wants to source local things and showcase. I mean, her food is art.
Yeah. And
love
so
it.
she can actually branch out and be like, "Hey, have you heard of this cut?" And she was like, "I have not. Let me get back to you." And so
Yeah.
she'll go do her research and kind of come up with it.
Okay.
And that is an invaluable resource. Like to bring that kind of creativity to the table,
And-
to be able to
yeah.
work with different cuts instead of just always getting the same thing every time.
And is there still a refrigerator there?
No, there's not. We don't have our retail freezer there anymore,
Yeah,
but we do
okay.
have one at Gather Cafe, and then we've also got one at Donna's Farm.
Yeah. So Gather Paleo Cafe, they're open for lunches and stuff.
Yes,
and
their
meal prepping
last
and-
day is August 15th. So
Oh,
go
okay.
see them before then.
Yeah. Okay. And then what is Donna's Farm?
Donna's Farm is a farm that we've been working with. I mean, we've known each other for years, and we've been selling at the farmers market together. Oh gosh, I guess I've been at the farmers market 6 years now.
So have you been doing the Beaumont Farmers Market?
I have not been doing it this year. I did
Okay.
it in February, and then I stopped in March,
Mhm.
and I'm doing exclusively home delivery.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Gotcha.
basically just being a hermit. So
Yeah.
I leave the ranch to sell beef and maybe stop by the grocery store. but
So
that's
for
about it.
residential customers, you'll bring it to them.
Mhm.
Oh, that's
In
that's
Southeast
fascinating.
Texas, I do free home delivery. So I guess it's Beaumont, Lumberton, Sour Lake, Cheek, Fannett, like all those areas on Wednesday, and then Mid-County, Orange, Vidor on Thursdays, and then Fridays like a pack-up day.
What's your best area? Who's eating all the beef out there?
Surprising, like I don't know, it's pretty even.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty consistent.
It's
for-
pretty consistent.
okay.
Like, so usually people like to group up. And so, like, I'll have a whole bunch of deliveries in Lumberton one day, and then I get a whole bunch of deliveries out in Orange.
Yeah.
And they'll, like, call their neighbors and get a beef order going, which is really handy.
Did you have anybody that shipped today outside of Texas?
I did one to Baton Rouge, and then
Uh-huh.
I was one Houston, Galveston, and Dallas.
Okay,
So
that'll
we're
be
just kinda-
interesting. Like, a year from now to see how far they branch out. Are there people from Maine or
No, I'm so
Washington?
excited. Well, I've
Yeah.
already shipped one to Ohio, and
okay.
that was kind of like I was saying with UPS, they're like, we really just can't guarantee that it's going to be there in 2 days.
Yeah. Okay.
And when you're packed on dry ice, that's like important.
Mhm.
But they're getting a lot better with it and a lot more about their assurances. And so,
So 2-day shipping is the sweet spot for
That's the two-
perishable stuff. Yeah.
especially in the summer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because we've all seen the
In the winter in the north, I could probably get 3 days out of it, but like it's
Yeah.
100 degrees outside.
I watch
so.
those shows about the Alaskan people that live in the bush, and they fish and hunt caribou, and then they just hang it. like because it's frozen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And you just like bury it in the permafrost. Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so when they want to eat, they just carve off a hunk of it and
That
heat
would
it
be
over
nice.
a fire. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I don't even hunt in the summer. Like I don't trust it.
I really have to get your opinion because you're a farmer on daylight savings time. Okay, so I'm a big proponent of.
I did not see that one coming. Maybe I should have asked for a list of questions first.
I'll tell you why. All right, I believe that we need to remain in daylight savings time year round, which is what we are in right now. So
You mean like the rest of the world time?
yeah, like it gets darker later.
Right.
It's not getting dark at 5 p.m. And every once in a while, I have this one lady that she's a farmer, a rice farmer, and she's always jumping my case saying, "You don't understand the life of a farmer. We get up," and I was like, "Hold on, it's the same amount of actual daylight hours. It's just that the what the clock says is different. That's
You're
all
saying
it is."
cancel daylight savings time.
No, remain in daylight. So daylight savings times is what we're in right now. Whenever we go back in the winter, that's standard time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like what we're in right now. Most people like that, but sometimes you come across farmers that say they don't like that, and I try to reason with them, and I say it's the same amount of total daylight hours, and
I guess it's different because I don't operate on a standard clock. I do operate by daylight hours, and so
So
no matter what's happening, I'm always
Right.
going to wake up 30 minutes before sunrise.
exactly That's
Like
the same
no alarm, no anything. That's just the way it happens, and
Okay.
it changes throughout the year.
thing. Okay, gotcha.
And I was like, I don't like resetting my clock.
Oh no, we have to do it twice a year, and
Yeah.
it messes up your circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
People are more depressed because you're not working 8 to 5 like
Right.
in an office, but I would say the majority of Americans are indoors 8 to 5, and
Right.
so when they don't want to walk out of their office at 5 and it's pitch black or almost pitch black outside,
Right.
this is depressing. You like to
That
kind
does
of
sound depressing.
yeah, you like to get home and have some sunlight hours. So, do you have some other animals on the farm just for fun, like chickens and?
I do have chickens. We do sell eggs. What else? I have a golden retriever and a farm cat. That's about it.
Yeah, is the cat pretty savage on catching mice?
No. I mean, he used to be, I guess, in his
yeah.
prime, and now he's just like
The chickens might
where's the
actually be better
Friskies?"
than-
Yeah, they're actually pretty like voracious. People think like raising chickens is like this really kind of low. They're like velociraptors.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're just little
they're
dinosaurs.
descendants of dinosaurs, and I've always wanted chickens because for the past 20 years I would eat about 4 eggs a day, and so it made sense that I could be a good candidate to have chickens. But I live in a neighborhood, so
It'd be the most expensive eggs.
it would
that
be
you-
right. Yeah.
Everyone's like, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna get chickens, and then I'm gonna have
Uh-huh.
free eggs, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
they're not free.
they're not free.
Yeah, because
There's like-
I can get a dozen.
If you have a
for-
patio, you're gonna be like pressure spraying your patio
Oh, yeah,
every day.
and that was with me. I have the same
They
backyard.
try and like break into my house,
Yeah.
like often.
Right, I can't rotate them around, so
Right.
all that chicken shit's gonna be right there in the same spot. But have you noticed the different colors of the yolks depending on like what they're doing, what they're eating?
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Sometimes if I don't know, do you feed them table scraps or do you let them just do whatever?
I just let them do. I mean,
Yeah.
I feed table scraps, and then I'm totally free range, so like they don't have an enclosure that they like.
Yeah, so you're.
I don't even have a
probably-
fence.
I would imagine you getting darker yolks then.
Sometimes
right? Yeah.
seasonally, it
Okay.
depends.
Yeah.
And I use Texas Natural Food, so it's a GMO, corn-free, soy-free, GMO-free
Mhm.
feed, and I think it produces a really nice flavor. But I think a lot of those darker yolks that you see at farmers market come because they're putting like more marigold, or they're putting some cayenne, or they're putting some other things.
Oh, they're tricking us. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's
Yeah.
it's a marketing thing.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, that's why I have different kinds of chickens, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's like, how do you set yourself apart?
Yeah.
And so when you open the box, you go, some of these are green
And blue.
and blue
That
and
looks really
pink,
cool,
and
yeah.
and you kind of go, oh, that's what's different.
Mhm.
Or you crack it open and you go, oh, that's why it's different from the store.
Yeah.
And I think that's where small farms and small agriculture shine, because they can look at it and be like, not only did it come from someone local, but it's visibly, nutritionally, and different.
Have you ever ate a duck egg?
I have. Donna's farm actually has duck eggs.
Would you like the texture? Or is
They're
it-
really great for baking, but
Oh.
it was a little silky for mine.
Yeah, it's like sticky, right?
Yeah, it's a little sticky.
Yeah, and they're huge compared
Because
to.
I do, I like mine medium, like over medium.
Mhm.
and it was just like I tried to do like a Benedict with it, and
it was runny.
it kind of just went everywhere.
It's like runny eggs.
Yeah.
Do you have any regulation on labeling for grass fed, or is it?
Yes.
Okay. It's like, do they check up on you, or how does that work?
So I signed all my affidavits, like to get all my original paperwork and labels. The first time around, actually going through the USDA was, it took me 6 months of, just working through a processor and working through the FCSIS. I messed up that anagram a little bit, but like there's some government anagram somewhere that is in charge of all that.
They're checking up on you.
Yeah. And so I have a health inspector come to the farm every year, and they're looking at my temperature gauges, and they're looking at kind of everything. Mm-hmm. And so I have all my affidavits signed up, and everything's lined up, and then they'll send a guy out, and they'll send a meat inspector out. And they're going like, "What are you doing?" And make sure that you're doing what you say you're doing, which is good.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on yourself and, some of your staff members on their maybe improved immunity because they work on a farm and because they're...
It's the same concept of like, letting your kid roll in the dirt.
Yeah.
Like, and the same thing of exposure, but I'm not exposed to people germs ever.
Yeah.
So I think that's a different deal.
Right. Yeah, there's a farmer. He's written some books and given some lectures. He's about 62, and it's called Poly Farm.
Mm-hmm. Polyface Farms. I've heard him speak.
Yeah, Polyface over in Virginia, I think. And can you remember his name?
His name is Joel Salatin.
Joel Salatin. Yeah.
I heard him speak at a Mother Earth News Fairs twice, actually.
Oh, wow. In person.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
He signed my book. I totally nerded out.
Yeah.
I had my little book, and he signed it.
I heard him say that from time to time, he goes out to the trough and sticks his head in and drinks. So he's
kind of an odd duck.
Yeah. He does a lot of weird stuff like that to build up his immunity. He even says that when he dies, he wants his family to bury him in the farm without being embalmed.
Yes.
He wants the earth.
You need a permit to do that?
That's true. Yeah, you're not allowed to.
You're not allowed to be buried on your own land, unembalmed, I don't think.
Right, yeah.
Unless you have a permit.
You're also not allowed to have a Viking funeral because I looked into it. That's where they...
with the arrows and the stuff.
Yeah, they send you off on a raft.
Dare I ask why not?
And an archer with a lit arrow will shoot to burn you. But what happens is the fire doesn't get hot enough to cremate you, so it's not legal. Yeah.
So then you're just like a burnt corpse out there on the water.
Yeah, it's probably not good.
Healthy.
And you have to have a good archer too, because that would be embarrassing.
It just didn't light up.
It'd
be like anticlimactic a little bit, because you'd be like off on a raft. Like
I think there was a scene of that in Game of Thrones. They kept missing, and it was probably for comic relief. But do you know any other cool facts about Joel Salatin? I mean, he's got a ton. But what are some of the? Do you have any practices that you got from him that you try to implement on your farm?
He has some really interesting. He's one of the most efficient. Farmers. Whenever you read his things, he's very opinionated.
For
clearly,
sure.
Right? But
he's like an advocate for what he does.
He is a very big spokesperson for what he does, and I commend that. And one of the things that he says that really hit home to me was, "Why would you want to live on a farm?" And he's talking about farm finance. He goes, "Why would you want to live on a farm and live a farmer's life and not live a farmer's life?" Does that make any sense? Like, if you're going to be going out to town and going out to eat every night, like doing all these different things, then you need to change the way your farm works.
Yeah.
If you're going to live an agrarian lifestyle, then you should be embracing that lifestyle.
Yeah, you got to go all in.
Yeah, and you kind of go, but I'm only 32. Hold on. And so there's been, some juggling with that. And, I don't know.
What does he do besides beef? Does he do other stuff?
Yeah, so Polyface Farms actually has an incredible business model. So they do pork, chicken, beef, and then they have a really reputable intern program.
Oh, okay.
So, and they're interning, and I say that and I bring it up because it doesn't sound very remarkable. And you're like, oh, they do internships. But they actually allow their interns to come up with their own business ideas and create their own businesses under the Polyface umbrella. That's what creates the many faces, right?
Oh, okay.
Because they're actually allowing these young entrepreneurs to come up and say, fine, you want to start pastured chickens? Come up with a business plan, make it work. We'll support you. We'll do it. We'll have it under our label. and like allow these different personalities and allow these different things to kind of thrive under that.
Okay.
Which
So,
is neat.
yeah, I was wondering where the name came from.
Yeah.
Mini,
It's made
mini,
up of many faces,
many
and all
faces.
the different animals. They do their own processing. I've actually been to their farm store in Virginia, which is pretty cool. I think it's in Virginia.
Wow. Yeah.
I was on a long road trip. I don't know what state I was
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, and so they're I think I've heard him say how he's selling everything.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's very efficient and from start to finish.
I remember he was up there at the podium and he was like banging his fists and he was yelling and he goes, "If you're not reaching into a nest box and pulling out 4 eggs, then you're not doing it right." And I was like,
Oh, like with one hand.
yeah, like because he was saying how you need to have the nest boxes closed and like
Yeah.
you need to be collecting eggs like 20 seconds per box and like doing all these things.
Yeah.
Very efficient.
Wow.
Which makes his farm work, the way that he's doing it. And I was like, I can't hold 4 eggs. And I remember having this like anxiety that like my farm was going to fail because my hands were too small to hold 4 eggs.
Oh,
you know,
goodness,
like,
yeah.
and I was like, oh, okay, well, he doesn't mean literally, but like take it seriously, you know.
Yeah. Well, do you ever have any snakes or any other cool stories you can think of on the farm? Any?
I don't like dealing with snakes. Like I do get the occasional chicken snake, but I don't really have all the poisonous snakes have kind of migrated away from my house and farmstead, which is nice.
You know what I wanted to get to before you started the farm? You thought you might wanted to be an archaeologist.
Yeah.
And what made you change your mind?
I did an archaeological dig with Texas State University in Belize for a summer.
Mm-hmm.
And all of my classes were like geared towards it. And I was like, what an amazing time. I came home and I was like, I learned so much. I do not want to be an archaeologist, like at all.
Yeah.
Like it was, I just wanted to be like Indiana Jones, like, but the female version.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no, it's actually like mostly paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, of course you have to get a doctorate and be.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because I
Do what
get
you wanna
like,
do.
what if you have a bachelor's in archaeology? What can you even do? You can't do anything.
Go for a master's.
Yeah.
And then go for your doctorate.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like secure funding and maybe do a dig.
And I guess it's one of those jobs that people say that they want to do. Like it sounds good on paper.
Yeah.
But then you're mostly you're a ditch digger,
You're a ditch digger.
and then you have to do paperwork.
Yeah.
And that's not fun.
And it was so funny because I was like, I don't want to be a ditch digger, and like a shovel jockey.
Yeah.
What you call it. And then I go become a farmer. And you're like,
Oh, yeah.
so I was like, so the first day that I'm unloading that like pickup truck full of compost, I was like, full circle. Like, what on earth?
what is the difference? So paleontology is dinosaurs,
Right.
and archaeology is more geared towards what?
Archaeology is like the digging and like the actual like excavation. I think paleontology is like the study of
Just
like, the
specifically
bones
dinosaurs.
and- yeah.
Yeah, and archaeology would be more.
I quit before I got there.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
I guess it would be more related to human type things, like structures that were built, and caves and tombs and.
Yeah, it's all super cool stuff. I loved, because I actually minored in anthropology and studying different cultures and studying the way people work and being able to recognize your own bias whenever you're studying things, giving yourself that objectivity, has actually been really rewarding in what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And it's like how to relate to people and how to see the differences and how to relate across topics. I think a lot of times in small business and a small agricultural business specifically, they come in very hardline and they're like, this is what it is, and kind of screw you if you don't believe it. And I was like, as long as somebody's eating beef, even if you're a vegan and you're not eating beef, that's fine.
Yeah.
Do your thing, I think that there's a place for everyone in it. And if you prefer grain-fed beef, great. We're also a cow-calf operation. Any day that anybody is eating beef is a good day for the cattle business.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's necessary to say, oh, you shouldn't be eating store-bought beef. Well, sometimes that's all you can afford, or sometimes that's what you prefer. Okay. That's fine too.
And that's cool that you have that.
That sounds wishy-washy,
yeah.
but like...
Well, it's cool that you're not a proselytizing grass-fed beef person.
Yeah.
That's kind of kind of like the vegans kind of get turned into.
Nobody wants to do that. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
if you ever get stuck on an elevator with a vegan, they're gonna tell you that's gonna be the first thing they tell you. You'll know that they're a vegan because it's kind of like, hi, I'm so and so, and then
I get blowback sometimes, like especially on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I didn't ask him anything. I didn't say, just I'll get messages that are like, well, I'm vegan and screw you. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
congratulations. I like plants too. like,
Right. Do you have any core beliefs that kind of keep you going every day, and knowing that you've got this, maybe at the time you thought it was a crazy decision and you managed to, now you're doubling the size of the herd, you're doubling the size of the processing.
Yeah.
What are some of the things on the inside that keep you going, or your mission, I guess, if you had a mission statement?
If I had a mission statement, I've never been asked that question before.
Oh.
It's a really good one.
You're providing us something for adults that make a family dinner. I mean, it goes so far beyond.
It
some
goes
of the things
beyond
that you
everything.
even
I think
yeah.
just gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And waking up and being grateful for what you have, and being grateful for your customers, and being able to look at people and being able to listen. And sometimes I'll get the phone call and be like, hey, I didn't really like this. And I'm like, all right, well, let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think just absolute gratitude of where you are, and being able to recognize like where you want to be. So you set your goals and you give everything you have, and some things that you don't, to accomplish them.
Yeah.
And be willing to sacrifice for them. And that's really hard.
No, that was very profound. Well, before we wrap this up, tell everybody all the different places they can find. We touched on it a little bit, but kind of go over it again of how they can find you if they want to order, if they want to pick up, if they want a delivery, or if they want to eat it at a restaurant.
You just covered all the things, I think. But you can go to wildearthtexas.com.
Okay.
And it has all of our information on there, where our retail freezers are. We're doing home delivery to all of not even Jefferson County, Orange County, all of Southeast Texas, twice a week. And then we're doing shipping all over Texas and Louisiana. So that's been an exciting jump. You can find us at Donna's Farm on Thursday and Friday. We have a big retail freezer there. Plus, you can get all of your local vegetables. Lone Star Sustainable Farm has their chickens out there, processed chickens, not live chickens.
Yeah.
So you can get all of your groceries in one place, and you can either do it drive-through. They are doing like where you can pull up and they'll give you an order sheet, or you can get out and actually shop the market.
Okay. And then tell us where they can find you on social media.
And on social media, it's just Wild Earth Texas on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, and the Instagram is really cool because you get behind the scene. I've been following on Instagram for a while,
and
you see the chickens, you see the golden retriever, you see like daily life, or basket
the chickens
of eggs.
in the house, and
you've got to follow the Instagram for the story for sure.
Yeah,
and then the pictures as well. And I want to challenge you within the next year to encourage you to start a YouTube channel. And I'll tell you why. So farming is one of those things where people are fascinated by it because they can't do it and they know they never will. Okay, so hear me out. So that's the reason why, like someone like me, I like to watch movies about the military or about cops and robbers or martial arts. It's stuff that I can't do. It's stuff that I know I'm never going to do. And I'm fascinated by it. Same thing for farming. And there's some of these farmers out there that have YouTube channels, right?
Oh, yeah, and the big personalities and YouTube channels.
And they're making more money on their YouTube channel than they are on farming because somebody in Chicago that wants to watch a video about a massive tractor that drives itself on GPS and creates it. It's entertaining, and there's not a lot of people that can make that video. So it would be cool to have some content showing all the different processes, I think, Yeah.
Well, that is a more valid request than my brother saying that I should get a TikTok for my chickens. So
you could, my friend that's an astronomer.
I heard they're stealing everybody's information. I don't know about that. It could be,
yeah. My friend that's an astronomer, Will Young, he's been on here as an episode. His TikTok went viral. He's got tens of thousands of followers,
really?
Just because how many astronomers are on TikTok?
Right.
Like, he's probably the only one. And he has really cool footage of the moon, and he was able to video a live lunar impact in 4K. He was one of the only people in the world to catch it, and just cool stuff like that that's not on TikTok.
That's pretty amazing.
Everybody's on TikTok dancing in their living room, but
how many astronomers are on there?
Just Will. Yeah. So everyone in their pocket that has an iPhone has a 4K camcorder, so you can do it. You can start a YouTube channel very easily.
I will think on that. Oh, and of course we're on the menu at Monica's. She's doing
Right.
hamburgers and different things, I think, this week.
Okay.
And, but that changes every week.
Yeah, got it. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome back anytime. We'd love to catch up with you in about a year and see how things go with the shipping and see what you're up to and hear more about your adventures on the farm. So,
Thank you.
all right. See y'all later.